All right, Mike wanted to get this out to you. The way we want to approach this property plan that's almost finished, not 100%, is from a big picture perspective. And what we're going to do is first we're going to take areas of human presence, which is the road and your campsite. Those two areas, the deer will expect human presence. When there's human presence there, they're not surprised. That's a good thing. We'll work that to our advantage. We're going to approach from the road most of our stands. A couple high impact ones. Harder to get back to a couple of them. And we're also going to approach some stands from the campsite. Short walk here, short walk here, short walk with the proper winds. We have short walks to get here. So the deer expect us to be here. They expect us to be here. If we can find a way to sneak into these stands from the places they expect us to be, we don't surprise them. Some of the things we're going to do to help us sneak into those stands, these blue lines, I'm going to email this all to you too. The blue lines are all blockades. You can make blockades out of cut trees, hinge cut trees, down trees. I prefer to make them out of a 48 or a 5-foot tall woven wire fence that I get on Craigslist for 20 cents a foot. The fence is very effective. The hinge cut blockades do help, but if you make them too long, the deer will find a way through. So as we approach this stand from the road, the blockade starts. And the purpose of the blockade, used in conjunction with these deer sidewalks that the deer like to travel, is that if the deer used to have 7 trails to travel through this area, we're going to try to get them, instead of using this once every 7 times, we want them to use it 6 out of every 7 times. The blockade helps eliminate some of the trails because they don't want to go through it. The lines of movement that are easier for the deer walk and they feel secure walking on make them want to do it. So we make them not want to walk here. We make them want to walk the deer trails we put in. And if we can get our usage from 15% up to 80%, it allows us to access these stands over and over again without the deer detecting us. So access from areas of known human presence with blockades to stop deer from traveling some of the places they did. Lines of movement to encourage the deer to walk specific places, put us on the X so we can hunt there, access, hunt, exit undetected, and keep doing it over and over to keep the property fresh. Now, if you look at where we got the bedding set up, and I'm not going to call it buck bedding or doe bedding, I'm just going to call it bedding. Just about all these bedding areas are set up with some kind of topography in mind. This is very effective over here. We have this dip in this ravine. All this territory drops off here. With the northwest wind, these deer can bed off the sides of the hill. Nothing up here can see them, but they can hear danger approaching, and more importantly, they can smell danger approaching from the swirling winds. In order to make all of these bedding areas effective, we have to let the deer use them with confidence that humans aren't going to show up. So what that means is we're going to put them not exactly where they are on the map. We're going to put them by selecting our stand locations, our trees, our areas on these food plots that we can get into without the deer knowing we're there. Once we pick those trees and we have those stands set, that's when we select the specific deer bedding areas. Now, I might have a dozen of them drawn in here. We might end up with 3. We might end up with 23. What we want to do is every place where the deer want to be a third of the way down this military crest, partially down the hill, and down in this bottom here, where the wind swirl with the northwest wind, all those places we're going to put bedding as long as the deer cannot see us, apologize for that, getting in and out of these specific stands. Okay? Some of the more high impact rut stands, such as this stand, this stand, this stand, this stand, this stand, some of the more high impact rut stands, we might bump a couple of does out of these bedding areas. We don't want to. If we can set up those stands so we don't do that, that's great, but we might bump a couple of does. But during the rut, what we're trying to do is if we condition the does to use this bedding all year long, when the bucks are on their feet during daylight hours, looking for those does that are bedded there during daylight hours, we can be in a stand location to intercept that. So if you look at this area with the northwest wind, put in their deer sidewalk, which will be explained in your write-up, a deer can walk all of this, a buck can walk this, and he can check every single one of these beds, every single one of these doe beds. Then he can cruise over here. He can check these doe beds. He can work his way up here. He can check these doe beds, and we're keeping him on our property with a specific route where we can intercept him knowing that he is specifically going to check these doe bedding areas because the does are now using them with enough frequency that it's worth his while to do that. And he also knows that when he walks these routes that no people use those areas. He knows people use this. He knows people use this. He might even figure out people are using these every once in a while. But He's never seen any people in these locations, never smelt any people, because nobody's ever there. Because we're not going in there till the rut is prime. All day sit, probably not slip in there till morning time when the does are back in their beds, so we don't blow them out of there. Go in there an hour past light whenever the does are in there. Sit a different stand till the does are back there and then crawl in there. So again, from a big picture perspective, human presence that the deer know about, access, secret access from all areas of human presence, dictated bedding that relies on the topography of the property. These are all areas that these deer want to bed with different winds, specific travel corridors to get the deer to move from bed to food or to move cruising locations during the rut to find where the does are bedded. Access, huntability, so we're like a ghost in the woods, are all very important. All these things can be moved slightly if we need to. If we can't put this stand here because these deer like coming through this bottom edge of this plot so heavy that we just can't stop them from doing it and they're getting it downwind of us, we move it back 20 yards. This stand here might not work here, might have to move it over here 20 yards. This blockade might have to be on this other side of the field versus this side of the field because you have that boots on the ground presence to know how to make that work. But the important things in this plan, and then we work around everything else that we know and we learn from recent information, boots on the ground, human presence. Access is from known areas of human presence because that doesn't surprise the deer. Bedding, where the deer want to bed, so we strengthen that so they use it 8 out of 10 times instead of 1 out of 10 times or 2 out of 10 times. Blockades to discourage movement. Lines of travel to encourage movement. Everything to stack their odds in our favor and let us hunt like a ghost. So take a few days and digest this plan along with the rest of the information I send you, and we'll set up another phone conference. We'll revisit it on the phone. Don't expect all this to get done in one year. I would never finish all this in 1 year. We'll pick the parts that make sense. We know the cabin's here. Let's get this road in. Let's set these stands up because we're going to have those access from that cabin. And then start interpreting deer sign and looking at these things. Are there a bunch of trails that flow through here that make us have a good blockade here and allow these deer to come through these plots undetected? We'll start slowly working at those things, but look at it big picture first, and then we'll kind of chip away at it as we go and modify it on the move.